What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Wow, got up early this morning to watch all the interviews that took place yesterday evening after the press conference, the final weigh-in and press conference for the great night of fights that are taking place on Showtime this evening. As we know, Jarrett Hurd and Islandi Lara, James DeGale and Truax, as well as Julian J. Rock Williams versus Nathaniel Gallimore, and blast from the past, Alfredo Angulo versus Sergio Mora on the undercard will all be facing off this week tonight in Las Vegas. Now, the part that what I'm going to talk about is some of the interviews that took place with Errol, the Truth Spence Jr., talking about Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Also, his willingness to go fight Kell Brook in the UK at 154 pounds, and how Errol Spence didn't take too kindly to the insult that was thrown out there by Anthony Joshua, saying that American fighters got big mouths and always talking, and how the UK is taking over boxing. Now, before I do that, definitely this morning gonna have another live stream, man. Pretty much all the live streams been really good. Had great conversations and great questions and discussions from very mature, knowledgeable boxing fans. And, so I hope you accept my invite to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when they happen. Because, that's the way to know when they're going to happen. I don't always do them on a regularly scheduled basis. So, I do them regularly because that's what we're really pushing the channel toward, is a lot of live streams so that we can have real-time interaction with mature and knowledgeable boxing fans. And so anyway, I hope you take my invite to attend by hitting the bell icon. Now, that's it. Errol Spence Jr. talked about himself and Kell Brook. And, I'll cover that first. I can't remember which the order of the conversations, but it was a bunch of people interviewing Errol Spence Jr. in the lead up to this fight. And as you know, Errol Spence last year, and actually it's two of the first fights that I covered on this channel, was Errol Spence Jr. versus Kell Brook, and then it was the lead-in to Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko. But last year, when Kell Brook, Errol Spence Jr. went over to beat the brakes and beat the eye socket up off of Kell Brook, that was the first time that I'd really experienced a lot of back and forth between UK boxing fans and the United States boxing fans. So a question was asked of Errol Spence Jr., where they said, Errol Spence, that Kell Brook subsequently, after he came back from, getting his eyeball right, getting the titanium put in the other half of his face, he said that he was, that he wanted to fight Errol Spence. And then Errol Spence, but the commentator, the person that asked the question, asked him about Kell Brook calling him out. And Errol Spence corrected him and said, no, that's me. I told him. I started it. I went on Twitter. This is Errol Spence said, I went on there and I said, hey, if you willing to, if you get a title 154, I'll go over there. I'll come up there and beat you up again. So that was Errol Spence that started it. I thought it was Kell Brook that was out of his mind talking about that. But Errol Spence said that, yeah, he'd willing to go up there. Then, after that, Kell Brook started talking about chocolate brownies and, how he was not, at that. I think there might have been Eddie Hearn. Some other people in the UK were making excuses for Kell Brook getting beat up by Errol Spence. And then Errol Spence said that he'd be more than willing to move up there and beat Kell Brook at 154 because that's what Errol Spence wants to do. Is he wants to be he wants to be a unified champion, unified undisputed champion at 147. And then he wants to go up to 154 and become the a unified undisputed champion at 154. Now I have to assume that this is going to be when Jermell Charlo moves up to 160, which, I don't think that's too far off. Jermell Charlo is a big boy, so I think that he's going to wind up being up there at 160. but that Jamal, then when Errol Spence Jr. goes up there, that he'll be able to clean out 154 as well. That's his plans. But to see him talk about the subject of the UK and how he thought that it was Anthony Joshua that really started a lot of the tension between the UK and Errol and the really the South. Because if you look at the fighters that they're talking about in the UK, they're really talking about Southern fighters, not just in the United States, but they're talking about like the cats from Alabama. You also got Jermell Charlo telling that he would very much love to have that easy money out of there with Kell Brook, and so that's pretty much the South. But he said that he was talking about Anthony Joshua. He said, yeah, when Anthony Joshua started all this, giving interviews saying that, that the UK is taking over boxing and how these American fighters are talking, they run their mouths a lot and this, that, and the other thing. And that made him feel, that made Errol Spence Jr. feel a certain way, because Errol Spence Jr., he fought for Team USA. And so he rides with the United States. But then he also said that he thought, relative to Deontay Wilder, that Deontay Wilder would knock out Anthony Joshua. Because and this is the same thing, Keith Thurman also said the same thing, but he said that because, Anthony Joshua is a good fighter, but that Deontay Wilder has really freakish power. And that if he just kind of grazes you on the chin, that you're going to go out and not get back up. Where Anthony Joshua's got good power, he's a good boxer, but he just doesn't think he's ready to, that he's really ready for a Deontay Wilder. So that's what I would love to see happen, man. I would absolutely love to see those four fighters get back in the ring together. Kell Brook and Errol Spence Jr. And Errol Spence said he'd go to the UK. So you got Errol Spence Jr. willing to go at 154 pounds to beat Kell Brook if Kell Brook can get his hands on another IBF belt, another 154-pound belt, which if any belt would be available to him, it would be the Saddam Ali WBO belt. But that's just another bloody beat down, man, at 154 pounds, because people that say that Errol Spence Jr., that Kell Brook is going to be stronger at 154 than, because he had a hard time making the weight. I don't think that's going to make any difference whatsoever, because Errol Spence Jr. is already somebody that can fight at 154 pounds. He's not a small 147. He's a big 147. And I think he's a bigger 147 than Kell Brook is. Though he did give Kell Brook his credit for, being very physically strong, being stocky, right? And he gave him his credit and said the dude definitely can fight. But, that he'd be more than willing to go beat that dude up back in the UK. So, hey, man, that'd be on and popping in my mind. And I think that would be a great 2019 situation. Because, as we see it now with Kell Brook still battling his way back, not in title contention yet. And Errol Spence Jr. being busy against Cellular in June. Hopefully I'll be in the house for that one. I doubt very much that could be happening in 2018. Also, you have Anthony Joshua, who, got saved by the belt by the WBA, who looks like more than likely he's going to be fighting Alexander Povetkin I think it said it's supposed to happen by September. So if he fights it by September, let me see, what is that? September, October, November, December. That's 3 months. No, that's not going to happen. So at Deontay Wilder's fight, if it even happens in 2018, 2009, if it happens in 2019, it'll be in 2019, if that at all, because according to the plan, that was laid out by Anthony Joshua, they're looking at 2020. Because they got that 4 year, plan for Anthony Joshua to coast and ride out on them belts before he gets in there with anybody that seems like they might be a danger to him. And the three biggest dangers to Anthony Joshua are one that he's not going to fight, one that's not going to fight ever. That's Luis Ortiz. Another guy that he's not going to fight for a long time. He probably would like to catch earlier than later, but he has no chance of beating. And that's Tyson Fury. And then Deontay Wilder, who, you know, he's trying to wait. I think they're trying to find a way to wait around and hope that Deontay Wilder loses. That somebody can take advantage of that awkward style and that, you know, that unorthodox boxing technique. Some people say poor boxing technique, right, from Deontay Wilder, and hope somebody can land a lucky punch on him and knock him out and get that problem out of his hair. So, you know, we'll see if that happens, man. But I did find that very interesting, man, that Errol Spence Jr. talked about the U.S. versus the UK thing. To me, though, it looks more like the South because, you know, that's the South. People aren't even realizing this, man. I was thinking about doing a video on like the aftermath of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and how Floyd Mayweather Jr. is having, what kind of effect he's had on boxing. And I think that the Floyd Mayweather effect can be seen. And I know that there's some older people been around boxing for a long time. They're going to say, well, you know, this is around before Floyd. It was, you know, it's been like this for a long time. And I understand that viewpoint. And I understand that is more than likely correct. But in a lot of ways, it's correct. But I think that it's been heightened. And the best way to illustrate it is by pointing to Floyd Mayweather, who's pretty much, you know, the biggest example of it right now, and what you see in the UK. So like for me, the UK, the way that like Anthony Joshua's behaving, the way Eddie Hearn is behaving is the way promoters have been behaving since the 70s. You know, if some of these guys can get away with not putting their fighter in any danger, or having before the 1970s, excuse me. So Eddie Hearn, the promoter, is just doing classical promotional stuff. He's trying to build a star, make as much money off the guy over 8, 9, 10 fights off the fighter. And then at the end of it, when all the talent's drained and they nowhere else to go, then he'll put him in there with a dangerous fight that he may or may not win, cash him out. Hopefully that other fighter is with him, right, when it happens, so that he can then transfer that name recognition from one fighter to the other and move on with it. Now that's a promotional aspect of it. But the Anthony Joshua, the language of it is like the Money Mayweather language. I worked really hard to be the A side of this equation. You know, maybe I'll freeze you out. You know, like, even though Floyd Mayweather has never said anything like that. That whole general, I'm the cash cow of boxing. I'm the, you know, that type of talk. You know, that's Floyd Mayweather. But the Southern dudes, see, they to me seem like more along the lines of Pretty Boy Floyd. Pretty Boy Floyd. The ones that the guys that feel like they're not getting the credit that they deserve. And they've got that killer attitude, definitely willing to trying to go up through the ranks, fight the best, and get the people who are quote unquote the cash cows into a position where they have to fight them. And you see that clearly with what's going on with Deontay Wilder, where Deontay Wilder is more of the Money Mayweather. He's in the Money Mayweather mode. He's in the Pretty Boy Floyd mode. And Anthony Joshua's in the Money Mayweather mode already, right? Where you have Deontay Wilder getting no credit for beating everybody he's put in the ring with. He goes out of his way, beats Luis Ortiz. It's clear to anybody that's being honest in boxing that this guy is the biggest danger in boxing. In boxing, not just because the heavyweight division, of course, is the big boy division. So he's the biggest danger in boxing. Same thing with Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. at the welterweight division, he is the most dangerous guy at 147. He's the guy that went over there across seas to get his IBF belt, and you got these other guys and he's sitting there trying to get to the point where he can get the other champions at 147 pounds in the ring with him. He talked about Keith Thurman, right? And he talked about how Keith Thurman, like what is that Keith Thurman, he was asked who he thought was the toughest fight between him and the welterweights. And he's like, I got to give credit where credit is due. I think it's Keith Thurman. But the problem with Keith Thurman, and here I'm paraphrasing the whole interview. He's like, Keith Thurman, he's the most injured guy. He's the most injured guy I've ever heard of. And the problem with him is that he's rich now. He's rich. He's achieved a lot in his career. He beat Danny Garcia, who's a tough fighter. He beat Sean Porter, who's a tough fighter. And it seems to Errol Spence as if, Keith Thurman's just not hungry like he was some years ago. He doesn't talk like he used to talk. He's just not hungry. And, when you're not hungry, he's like, maybe he just wants to go off and, to Nepal with his wife, and live out his days in Nepal with his wife. But he just doesn't seem like he wants it very bad. And that's when you get to that stage in your career when you're rich, when you don't feel like you have anything to prove. Right. And I think, but Errol Spence Jr. has something he wants to prove. The guy that interviewed him asked, like, what keeps you from going into that mode? And, he said, what keeps me from going to that mode is, like I said earlier, I want to make Errol Spence Jr. wants to unify at 147 pounds, hold all the belts at 147 pounds, move up to 154, get all of the belts at 154, and go down as an all-time great. And I just don't know if Keith Thurman has that desire to do that anymore, right? And I think he's right. I think it shows in what they're doing, man. But so you can clearly see that Errol Spence, like I said earlier, is in that pretty boy Floyd stage of his career when he's really trying to go after the biggest and the best. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was at 130 pounds calling out the best 147 pounders. And they wouldn't fight him. They want to act like, he's too small. There's nothing in that for me. There's no reason to fight him. And they kind of pshawed on it, just like whatever to the idea. But Floyd kept pushing, and eventually he got one of those dudes in the ring and had his seminal moment and beat the brakes off of him. And from there on, hey man, it was money made time from then. I think the hunger to beat the best champions out there might have gone away, and his mindset changed to, building a brand, right? To building a brand, to making as much money as he can. And he deserved it because of what he did in the earlier part of his career. It seems to me that early in Anthony Joshua's career that he's already there. Kell Brook, on the Kell Brook portion of this equation, I think he's just trying to pick up the pieces, man. I think he's just trying to pick up the pieces. But I think he's got a lot of heart, though. I mean, I do. And maybe he's still in the mindset where he's trying to do great things. Talking about fighting Errol Spence Jr. again that shows that the dude's got some cojones, man. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I don't think I'm a fan of a lot of UK fighters for sure. The talk that's going back and forth really, to me, it's kind of fun on one level because, I like to mess around. I like to crack jokes, on Anthony Joshua. I don't have any real problem with Anthony Joshua, as a person, the way that he, but when you start talking about freezing people out and you make it real apparent that you don't want, that you're not really trying to make a fight happen, then, to me, it starts getting a little bit out of hand. And when you have, commentators and channels that have gone out of their way to try to tear down a guy like Deontay Wilder, who's really trying to come up, right? Who deserves a shot at being the best, and he deserves there's nobody in the boxing world. If Anthony Joshua held all 4 belts, there still wouldn't be anybody other than Deontay Wilder that deserved a shot at all of those belts. If Deontay Wilder did not have the WBC belt, he would still deserve a shot. He would still deserve a fight with Anthony Joshua, just off the fact that he's one of the best heavyweights in the world. And so when the talk is out there and about how this guy can't, you can't take the fight, he'll crush him, he'll beat him, Deontay Wilder throws windmill punches, this, that, and the other thing, but the dude's 40-0 with 39 knockouts. To me, it's like, come on, man. Let's just make it happen. Let's just make the fight. Let's make the fight happen. And I think we got rewarded. Now, what might not make the fight happen, ironically enough, might be what happened with Errol Spence and Kell Brook. Because like I said at the start of this video, that was how that's the first subject that I covered. And you could not tell UK fans for anything that this dude, Kell Brook, was about to get the brakes beaten off of him by Errol Spence Jr. They said, who has he fought? You know, he's slow. He's this, he's that. Look at how he got rocked by this guy. All of those conversations took place with Kell Brook and Errol Spence Jr. Now, there's some people out there in the UK that thought Errol Spence could beat Kell Brook, right? I'm not going to deny that. Just like there's a bunch of people in the UK that think Deontay Wilder will knock out Anthony Joshua. But, you know, we'll never know. Just like I think Errol Spence will beat Keith Thurman. But in order for these things to happen, you know, to know for sure, the fight's got to actually happen. But anyway, man, looking forward to these fights this weekend. And with that, I'm out. Peace.